All right. Well, and other things in the news too.
Yes.
And I'm not really sure what to think about this either. Is Kanye West, who I'll say this: Kanye West he's an interesting man.
To say the least. To say the least.
Yeah. Even back, you can say even back like 10 so years ago, he's always been a very interesting character. And people have called him a genius. They've called him crazy, what have you. But recently he's kind of been, I guess, I don't know if you call it a conversion or whatever, but he's come out as a Christian in recent weeks or so, I guess. I don't know if he would have called himself a Christian beforehand, but he's definitely I won't say playing the part, because I can't make that judgment.
Right.
But he's called himself, he's kind of become a Christian, and he's coming out with this the new album. Was it Jesus is King? Is that was the title of it? I think it was Jesus something. But I forget I have not personally listened to his new album.
I think it is. Yeah, Jesus is King. That's it's one of the title tracks, and it's the title of the album.
Okay, yeah. So that was the album that came out, and I don't know. I don't want to put him, because I'm not going to put him on a pedestal, or because if he is a brand new convert to Christianity, which is a great thing, awesome. If that's true, I'm super excited. Not only for mainly for him, because I believe in Christianity. I think it's the right religion, and all that. I believe it to be true. And the fact that he is on that path, that's awesome. But what I fear is that a lot of the Christian conservative side of things is that they're gonna kind of make him this figure, and instead of letting him, giving him kind of guidance and help, and kind of helping him to mature as a believer. And a lot of times that people new converts, especially in the world that Kanye lives in, there's times where you still have that old nature in you, and it's easy to fall back into old patterns, not because you're not saved or anything, but it's something that does happen. It's like we're always in a constant battle to live up to our salvation, in a sense. And like I said, I'm not going to question his conversion. I think it's genuine. That's not my place to question someone's salvation. But what are your thoughts on this, Andy? Like, do you think it's what do you think?
Well, I mean, I've been kind of watching the kind of, I guess, the evolution of Kanye West. He had, I think he was testing out the waters a bit with his album before, the songs about Pablo, I think it was called. Where there in that album there were some undertones of of Christianity, or or the Christian faith.
Right.
But I think this one is like very much of course with this new one it's very explicit. Just going by the title.
Right.
And yes, of course, it's just because someone says they line up behind who I line up behind doesn't necessarily mean I I just, I mean, I know as Christians, we're called to take in all people, but just the pragmatist in me is just like, I'm just gonna keep, I'm just gonna keep watching. I'm gonna see how this develops.
Yeah, right. And I'm kind of the same way too. It's like, well, let's see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, for someone of his stature, if
Mm-hmm.
he does like mature as a believer as time goes on, I think that's kind of having someone him being uh, a spokesman out to the culture
Mm-hmm.
of some of because he's arguably one of the most famous people out there today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a lot of even people who don't necessarily listen to his music, they know who Kanye West is.
Right.
And from what I understand, his album's not just some poppy Christian album or anything. It's there's actually some from what I've heard or I've had people like talk about what the lyrics are in there. It actually sounds like there's some substance to it. At least it's not just
Right.
some.
Like he's been saying like this, this album is, uh, very very heavily influenced by the Gospels, and so
Right.
so there's a big infusion of the Word, in his music, and I haven't listened to it yet. I am, I will eventually, but in preparation to talk about this, I did watch the Big Boy interview that he did. Um, and it was there were some things that I personally didn't enjoy about but mostly about how he interviewed as opposed to the substance. But he was like he seemed very frantic, and but that's not that troubling to me because I know a lot of new believers or returning believers who have finally gotten their own like personal revelation or the kind of the road to Damascus kind of situation, and they get that initial jolt and fire and vigor and zeal about the gospel and about God and Jesus
Right.
and
Right.
all that kind of stuff. So that is very so his energy in the interview seemed fairly reminiscent of that. Um, but it was weird because like the way he interviewed was he didn't like if I'm Kanye and Big Boy's off to my left, a lot. I mean, kind of the camera angles made it look like he was kind of talking out this way and not really engaging in Big Boy. He was
It
asking the
was
question.
edited. It was edited really weird, right? Like that
Right.
whole interview.
And I don't and yeah, and I don't want to and I don't think that they inverted the image because I was still able to read his shirt, which had which was basically advertisement for his new album, King Jesus,
Yeah.
or Jesus is
Totally.
King.
It wasn't some like rock bottom like interview with like Homer Simpson, but it was just I felt like it was edited a little weird that whole
Right.
interview.
Well, yeah, like there was like that one question like that he asked, and he kind of came in big, right away, which that doesn't sound natural.
No, no.
Nobody starts off big, especially the way that Big Boy asked him the question. It was more, he like it was, it just doesn't make sense. He was like, "Oh, do you fear like losing your audience or whatever or your fans?" And then he just came in big, like, "No, dog, I fear God." He's like right away, just like that's not
Yeah,
natural.
that's where I like it's like something like I think there was something that was like he was starting to build up to something, and
Mm-hmm.
like that was kind of like the end piece, but that's where they like edited it, where like they cut right into that
Right.
part, and
They basically they cut the. Uh, it's like showing Evel Knievel making the jump, but not the moments leading up to it. Like they didn't show Evel Knievel on the ramp.
right,
So,
exactly.
but you know, I mean, I kind of understand. them fearing Kanye because he's so influential.
That's the part of like that. That's the thing. Like I said, if his conversion is genuine, someone of his stature can be really like a huge influence for Christianity, which you could. I think that's a great thing, to be honest.
But I'm wary because I don't believe Christianity should have celebrity.
I would agree with that too.
I mean, regardless of the possible converts he can bring in, or like the tension that someone of Kanye's stature can bring to Christianity, I don't think celebrity belongs in Christianity. I don't think celebrity is compatible with Christianity, because the only one that we are supposed to turn our eyes toward is God.
As long as it's like something where it's like Kanye is constantly not pointing at himself, but like always pointing into
Right.
the right direction.
If he's reflecting, and from the interview that I saw with Big Boy, I think that's what he's doing. Then okay,
Yeah.
I don't foresee a problem yet. But the moment it becomes about Kanye, then I'll be like, then I'll have to if he claims himself to be a Christian, then he's my brother, and I will have to keep him hold him to account.
Right. And here's a couple of things of my thoughts. Like for me, it's like even if he is someone that like this is not necessarily a farce, but he's a young Christian who's gonna make mistakes. But if someone of his stature like gets people to like, what is this gospel thing, and then they actually read about it and are prompted to Christianity, even if he like is kind of goes back to some of his old ways and like it makes mistakes, the good has still been done. He's still, he can still, God can still use him for, um, use him for good. And the other thing, though, if his conversion is genuine, like what I always urge any young believers to do is like, listen, like, I go back to there. One of my life verses comes from Peter in one of his epistles, talking about like always be able to give a reason for why you have the hope that you do in Christ. And for me, that that requires you actually have to know your Bible. Like you got to take time to read it. You got to pray.
Right.
And
That's the apologist mantra right there.
yeah, because when the time comes for you to share the gospel with others, they don't care about what like Kanye West says, or they don't care about what your church says. They don't care about like so and so. It's about why you came to believe in Christ, and what has changed, and that takes knowing the Bible. You got to know, and we might have different theological beliefs on things, and but as long as obviously we all believe in Jesus Christ and the gospel, and the other stuff is just like because how I came to Christianity is probably very different from you. And it's definitely different from a lot of the friends that I have who,
Right. Different for Kanye.
yeah, and it's like people have come from like rock bottom, like they should be dead, but like they're not. I came to it more through like the logic and reason,
Mhm.
and
Hmm.
of everything else that's out there, it's the only one that made sense to me.
Right, and it's interesting because that's what I appreciate about Owen Benjamin, because that's how he came to become a Christian.
Yeah,
It wasn't like some like supernatural event where he saw a vision of Jesus or whatever. It's just like he was he looked at the world, he looked at his he looked at his own life, and it was he was in the Hollywood system, and
he constantly talks about the logos.
you're right, the word. Um, he saw correlations of like what Jesus was talking about. Like if you live if you live a certain way, then your life is going to reflect it. And he saw, and it was all, and everything that in his life, and like in Hollywood and in the system, mirrored like all the bad things that were going to happen.
Yeah, and like I said, everyone kind of comes to Christianity in a very God brings us in a myriad of ways. Like I said, some people are in the gutter, drinking themselves to death, and then Christ found them. Some people come to it through logic and reason. Um, some people are kind of they are in the church their whole lives, and it's just like they as they have all like the stories there, and as they get older, they kind of, it's like, I gotta make a decision on this, like whether do I actually believe this or not, and you kind of wrestle with stuff. So yeah, everyone kind of comes to church and Christianity in very different ways.
Word.
And so my hope is that this is a genuine thing, that as long as he's constantly like reflecting God's light and not pointing towards himself, then awesome. So like I said, yeah, like I'm tentative. Like we'll see how it plays out.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying that I want, I'm waiting for him to fail. I'm saying like I want, like, I'm not saying I want him to fail. I want to see him get to the finish line.
Right. I want to see, not necessarily for me or for anyone else. For him, I want to see him grow and be kind of grow closer to Christ, and use the gifts and talents and things that he has available to him.
Right. The
Because
opportunities.
he has a lot available to him to be
Right.
able to do a lot of good for God, if that's the path that he's going. And I hope that that's what happens, and that he grows strong in his knowledge of the word and grows as a believer. That's
Right.
my hope.
Right, because I don't want, because like the parable of the sower, I don't want him to be, I don't want him to be the seed that gets thrown. I don't want him to be the shallow soil, essentially.
Right, because the thing is, like, I don't necessarily, as a believer, I don't necessarily need Kanye for anything. Like we've already won. It's like it's like, the only thing I care about is, like, it's like, hey, what, how can you? It's like contributing to God, Himself. Like, are you gonna be able to? Are you growing as a believer yourself, and are you sharing the gospel? That's it. That's all I care about.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I don't want it. I don't want this. I mean, I pray that it's, this is not just, this flash in the pan. Like, he gets like this quick growth, but because, he's not in deep soil, the fervor, the passion dies out quickly.
Yeah. Hopefully, it's not the shallow, rocky soil or the thorns.
Right. Right, because that's that's another thing. It was, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, or what is it? It'd be stupid for the left not to be afraid of Kanye, because because not only is he influential, but his family's influential. In that, two of the most influential people in the planet that got together. And and I don't know about Kim. I don't know about Kim. They profess to be Christians, and I know they are sometimes seen at Hillsong Church in downtown or in LA. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what her status is. I don't know what her faith journey is. But yeah, the left should be afraid, because if nothing, Kanye and Kim are the kind of sneaky. No, right, but they're also this. They're kind of this sneaky example of the classic nuclear family. which the left is constantly trying to destroy. But that's why I don't know if you're familiar with that HG TV show Fixer Upper. Yeah, with you know uh, Chip and Joanna Gaines, yeah, and how they were like attacked because like the pastor had said something, not PC about gay marriage, and it was no wonder that they were attacked because they were the model of the nuclear family, man, wife,
Right.
children, and
Right.
and interestingly enough, Kanye does exemplify the nuclear family. He has a wife, and he has kids.
Right.
He's a strong male leader. And even though his wife is powerful and influential in her own right, I mean because my sister watches it, I occasionally get pick watch clips or little snippets of Keeping Up with Kardashians, and it seems like they have a more or less traditional marriage.
Yeah.
Where the man is the head of the household. The woman is in charge of the kids. And not that that's the only thing she does, because she runs like her multimedia like empire and everything like that. But I mean, more or less, they're the example of a nuclear family.
Yeah.
And and yeah, if I were the left, I'd be shaking in my boots, because if and especially the message that he's giving, not just about the gospel and about Jesus, but about stop being a slave slave mentality, and have a victor's mentality, and think for yourself, and don't just do something because someone tells you a thing about somebody else. Have your own opinion about it.
Right.
And so coupled with those two things, like the message of you know think for yourself, be a victor, not a victim. And the TV show that shows him being the family man, being the patriarch of his family, having a loving wife, having children, having making the world a better place for his children. That gotta terrify the left.